databases we have at the ULM library, my particular favorite is LexisNexis Academic. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best database, it just means that that's the one that I like the most in particular. And it's been a favorite of mine even before I knew I was going to be a librarian some many years ago, because I recognized that it could find things that no other database could, and it could find things that not even the internet could. But hopefully I can show you why I think it's so great, and maybe you'll like it too. LexisNexis is definitely our very best legal resource, and is a great resource for newspapers, business information, and people searches like directory searches. One of the things that I find the most weird about LexisNexis is that it is older than what you think the internet is. Because what we know as the internet now, where you see something, you see a link, you click on it, you go there, that's the World Wide Web, and that was started in the late 80s. Before that, the internet was around in the 70s and the 80s, and it was much older than that, and LexisNexis was around at that time. It's really true. This is what the internet used to look like. I think it's kind of weird that some people still act like computers are this new thing that just showed up in libraries fairly recently, when in fact they've been a part of research for quite a while. It's just that the difference is that back then LexisNexis is something you had to pay for, like on a pay-for-play kind of basis, where you pay to get in, and you pay to look at records, you pay to print out records like individually, so it was actually pretty expensive to use, because that's just the way the internet was back then. I mean, if you look at this lady, she's not even using a monitor. This is a teletext machine, which actually taps out text onto paper like a typewriter. And that's not even a modem she's using, that's an acoustic coupler, which is like even slower than dial-up, if you can imagine that. Still today, LexisNexis is fairly well known, and is a very powerful tool in many different kinds of industries, and thus they have different versions of LexisNexis for each of those. The one that we have is LexisNexis Academic, which has a few of the powers of each of them. So that makes LexisNexis kind of unique compared to some of our other databases, because some of the databases that we have are just for libraries and research, or just for academic things. But LexisNexis in particular is a very professional kind of database that you may encounter in one form or another after you graduate and become a member of the regular workforce. So here's a little tip. Depending on what kind of profession you're going into after college, it might be useful to tell interviewers that you know what LexisNexis is, or list it as a skill as something that you can do after you've learned how to use it. Because some employers actually can recognize LexisNexis by name and see it as a useful skill. Now, if you don't believe me, have a look at Conan O'Brien's television show's internship program page. If you want to be a research intern, you have to be familiar with LexisNexis. They actually overtly say they want you to be familiar with LexisNexis. So let's have a look inside LexisNexis Academic, and I'll show you why I think it's one of the best databases we have. Like all of our databases, you'll find LexisNexis Academic at our homepage, which is ulm.edu/library. You can also find it under these menus up here, library right there. And so LexisNexis will be listed under databases by name, databases by subject, or the databases click link, which is right here. You can also find it in our catalog if a particular periodical is in LexisNexis Academic, but it'll open it automatically from the catalog. So LexisNexis Academic, when you open it up, gives you a search box right away, and you might be thinking, oh, this is just like Google, I'll do a search and get stuff. The trouble with this is that because LexisNexis Academic is so rich and deep with content, it's kind of like opening up a closet door and like a bunch of boxes fall out on you. It's there's just so much stuff in there. And so I say it's better luck to do a search by content type depending on what kind of thing you're looking for. Like there's a news search, a legal search, and with that the international legal stuff, company search, which is your business stuff, and people, places, and things, which is directories. Every once in a while I'll come into LexisNexis Academic and do quick searches for some people that I'm interested in and collect a bunch of newspaper articles, because a lot of these articles are ones that actually do not appear in Google News Search, or are articles that maybe disappeared after a while, like they'll let you have it free and then they put it behind a paywall. LexisNexis gives me access to that stuff, so it's one of the things that I do for fun is to come here and get articles. So if you look under search by content type, you'll see that we have more than one type of news search, including all news, foreign language news, and broadcast transcripts. Broadcast transcripts are special in particular because those are not available for free online usually, and they go back to like the 90s and the 80s, and these are transcripted TV broadcasts where somebody actually wrote down what they were saying on television, and it's one of the only ways that you can do a search of TV news or find TV news in an archive, because you can't always find archival footage from TV, but you can find the information that might have been in that broadcast. And again, that's exclusive to LexisNexis. It's something you won't find in any of the other databases. So I'm just going to do a quick all news search. And I think I'll look for Paul McCartney and do a search. And I put quotes around that because that makes it so it searches just for that phrase. And that works in a lot of databases, including Google. And so it says here we have 999 results. That usually means that you maxed out the available results, which is not a surprise with Paul McCartney. Some of our other databases actually tell you how many hits you got, period, like 1 million or 1 trillion or whatever. But this stops at 999. So if you see that, that probably means you need to refine your search. So these are listed by newest to oldest. And because Paul McCartney is still active publicly, we're still getting news like right up to present day as to what he's doing. And many people talk about him and write about him, and he has interviews of his own. And there's just so much stuff to look through. So I'm going to edit this search, which is one of the best ways to actually get anything that you need. So you need to look under advanced options, and here you get your options to say, well, what kind of sources you want to look at, or where it's from. Like you could choose a certain region if you wanted to, or a certain type, which isn't always 100% accurate, but it's pretty close. So I'm going to look around a certain year, let's say 1978 to 1992. So just basically the 80s, we'll say. And I want all news, English, everything. Of course, there are not going to be any blogs back in those days. And I'll apply it to my search and do my search again. So we have less results this time. That's because we were looking at a specific slice of time. And whenever you do a search in LexisNexis Academic, it tells you where you were getting your results from. So it tells me that most of my stuff is from newspapers, some were from news wires and press releases, as well as news transcripts, blogs. One blog? I wonder. Kirkus Reviews. So it'll show you what kinds of results you got, and it's a little clunky, but there's ways to move through it. So if I were to open up industry, I can find information on certain industries. Like I guess lawyers is under here. And of course there's going to be actually a lot of litigious kinds of news articles about the Beatles, because it's actually a very big part of their history, unfortunately. Also television talk shows, so try that. And I guess Geraldo Rivera telling it all. I'm going to click on that and see what that's about. Oh, this is Larry King. I guess Larry King is here interviewing Geraldo Rivera. You know, in case you ever care to know about that kind of thing. And there, my search bit is highlighted in red, which makes it a little bit easier to find what it was you were searching for. At the far left of the page, you might notice these little icons, and these allow you to print, save, export, or keep citations for the article that you want to use. The saving options are fairly straightforward, but in particular I want to show you the bibliographic references bit, which exports it to something like RefWorks or another bibliographic program, but most people don't really have those. All you really need to do is select display bibliographic information in a new window, select your style, but you only have 3 to choose from. So I'm going to select APA, click export, and then it'll put the citation here that I can copy and paste into my paper. And it does warn you that these are not 100% correct all the time, but it does give you enough information to get started with. When I was in library school, I took an entire 3-credit course on legal resources. Just legal research resources, the whole semester. So I can't really explain to you in like 10 minutes all about legal resources. But I can tell you the basics about them, because legal research is different from the other types of research that you might do, especially if you're trying to apply it to real law. And that's kind of difficult and dangerous, which is why we pay lawyers the big bucks to do this kind of stuff. But when you're doing like academic research, the law can be incredibly important, and I think that it's underused in research, because what the law says or things that actually happened in court have a huge bearing on what happens in our lives, and that's the law. So why not use it in your research? Before we go any further, I need to make it clear that I am not a lawyer and I cannot give you real legal advice, but that probably is the best advice I can give you, that if you're not a lawyer, you're not a lawyer, because the law is a bit more complex than a lot of people realize. Like, some people think that there is this book of law that you can go to that tells you exactly what is legal and what is not. It doesn't really work that way, because there is no book of the law. The law is actually made up of a complex network of many different kinds of legal resources that you have to actually be trained to use. And LexisNexis is a big part of that, because LexisNexis is used by real legal professionals in real life to decide the fates of people in court or during lawsuits or etc. So LexisNexis maybe has touched your life in a way that maybe you didn't know. LexisNexis, like the full legal version, is very expensive, and we don't have that. But LexisNexis Academic, as it is, has a lot of case law and statutes and codes that can be helpful to you. And there's 2 types of law with legal resources. I guess this is the most basic way to explain it. The primary law is stuff that comes out of courts or legislation. And the secondary law are types of resources that explicate the primary law, like kind of explain what it's about. So if you look under search by content type, you can find that there's many different kinds of legal searches we can do, but I'm going to focus on cases and statutes and codes instead today. So let's say we wanted to look at, I don't know, state statutes and regulations, like what's the law in Louisiana about a certain thing. So to find just Louisiana, you can look under advanced options, and it'll only let you search certain types of code at a time. I can't search all 3 of these. But I'm going to just select, let's say, statutory code and Louisiana, and I don't really need a date, so I'm just going to go to apply and look for dogs. Louisiana code relating to dogs. So let's see, criminal offenses, dog license tax. Now I'm going to click on this one and just see what it says. Let's see. Dogs as personal property, seizure of dogs running at large, property fenced as a fox pen, notice to owner, dangerous to dogs. So this is law about dogs. And as you can see, this is legalese. But down here at the bottom, we have this bit here that says case notes. This is something that you will not find on the official Louisiana website, where you'll find a lot of these. Basically, everything above this bit down here with the bold is what you would find on the official Louisiana website. The stuff that's down here are cases and codes that relate to this, which again are secondary law, which help to explain how this law works. Because you see, when a law is made by the legislature, no one really knows what it does or means in real life until you actually apply that to a real case. That's kind of how our legal system works. So let's say I wanted to know about this case right here. So if I click on it, if we have access to it, it'll open it right up, and there it is. And so there's this guy versus this guy, and there's a case summary here about what happened in the case. And I guess it has something to do with dogs and a rabbit pen, and a dog got shot. Oh, that's too bad. But you can see why these sorts of things end up in court. And I guess this happened in 1986. And of course, you can start your legal search with the case itself if you know who is involved. I think just for fun, I'll look for the University of Louisiana Monroe. Let's have a look at that. Oh, yeah, actually I used to know one of these people. Alright, that's awkward. Like I keep saying, LexisNexis Academic is not like the other databases we have. And it's the most powerful database we have. This is sort of what I'm talking about when I say that. So let's try that again. If you're looking up a specific case that you know the name of, or know somebody who was involved, or looking for a citation, you can put those in here. You can also do a search on a certain topic. In this case, I'm actually going to look for a party again, and I'm just going to look for De Niro. There we go. And so here are some cases that involve De Niro's. And so in this particular case, an insurance company tried to sue Robert De Niro, saying that because it was later found out that he had prostate cancer, that they shouldn't have had to insure him and that he falsified things or whatever. In the end, the court goes with Robert De Niro and says, well, that's pretty much ridiculous that you would even try to do that. But as a part of this, they had to drag Robert De Niro into court and have him talk about his private matters in a way. And yeah, you never know what you may find when you're searching through case law. LexisNexis Academic is one of the best business resources we have, and it covers both publicly traded companies and private companies. So no matter if your company is big or small, it will probably have at least something in this database. If you know the name of the company that you're looking for, it's fairly simple to get started. Just look under Get Company Info and search by name or by ticker symbol. And ticker symbol is the best because it takes you right to where you're going. So I put in the ticker symbol for Apple, and it's opening up Apple for me, and it has all kinds of stuff, the contact information, where they are, stock stuff, information about the company, a list of the people who are in charge of the place, and lots of other stuff, including news. And because Apple is a large, very well-known company, there's going to be a lot of information about it. Smaller companies are going to have a lot less information, but sometimes they'll have at least something, no matter how small the company is. And so if we look under news, it'll show you some major news about the particular company, and you'll just kind of like do a quick search on it, and it'll give you executive information, executive contacts, which is actually really nice. You've got email addresses for all these people, which is very interesting. Some companies don't publish this stuff, so it's always nice to get a hold of that. Under financials, you can get financial information about the company, some of which you can actually dump out into an Excel file if you want to make some kind of report. So if you go to download table, it'll put it in a .do file, which you can open in Excel. The ability to make custom reports in LexisNexis Academic is both useful and interesting. And what I'm about to show you just might hit close to home, maybe. You can find the company dossier search under Search by Content Type, under Companies here. And what the dossier search does is allows you to put together a list of executives and companies and industries depending on certain criteria you ask for. So I'm going to create a company list, and I'm just going to ignore all this stuff at the top, and I'm just going to ask for geographic information. Stuff in Louisiana, Monroe, 71209. Maybe 203. Yeah, not 209. I'm just going to ask for stuff within 5 miles of the university. So it gives me a preview of the list. It found 8,000 something companies, and then it's going to ask me to customize the list. And you can ask for more or less information depending on what box you tick, but I'll just leave it as it is. and I just want them put together by company name, and then I'll update the company list. This might take a minute or two because it's going to be a long list. And there it is. And so this is a list of companies that are in the area where I am right now, here at ULM. And it's kind of surprising how many there are registered here. But I'm going to search the list for Donut and see if we can find something like that. Donut Palace. Donut Palace is that pastry place which has opened up near ULM on Desir. I've never been there before, but it's a small place, you know, and yet there is information about it in this database. It tells us that we have about 4 employees at that place. It tells us some idea what their financials are like and what their phone number is, etc. It also gives us their SIC code, which is 5461. So I'm going to copy that. And the SIC code is the classification that is used for companies to tell people what a company does. So I'm going to go back to create a company list and stick in that SIC code I got. And again, I'm going to ask for the Monroe area, sort of around here, within 5 miles. Now I'm going to make it 10 miles this time. And we're searching for that SIC code in this area. So I'm going to create the list. Then it gives me a preview. So I'm going to just continue. And then I'm just going to go to the list. And so these are all companies which bake stuff in the Monroe area. There actually was one time when I tried to find the email address of a journalist on a newspaper's website. They didn't have it listed anywhere, obviously, because they didn't want anybody to contact this person. So I looked that person up in LexisNexis Academic, and I was able to find that person's email. So such is the power of LexisNexis Academic. So if you go under search by content type again, you can find biographical information and do a search on somebody's name. And there's going to be a lot of people. Like, you'll search for Joe Schmo, and there'll be a lot of Joe Schmoes. So you may need to search through them to find the particular person you're looking for, who may or may not be the particular person you're looking for. But sometimes you can get quite lucky. I'm going to search for Howard Goodall, who is a composer in England, who is not very well known here, but he is pretty well known over there. And so, as you can see, I've already clicked on it. And I know it's him in this one because that is a kind of music related, but some of these are not, and those are the wrong Howard Goodall. And so if I click on his name, I can get a little bit of information about him, like what his nationality is, his birth date, and also an address. And this address, if I open it up in Google, I can actually look at it, and strangely enough, this is his actual house where he lives. And yeah, that is kind of weird, but you can't find addresses to people's homes, especially people who are fairly well known, just anywhere. And so that is something interesting that LexisNexis can do that maybe other databases can't. So you never know what you may find in LexisNexis Academic until you actually try to look for it. So even if you don't have any research business in LexisNexis Academic, and I assure you, you do have research business in LexisNexis Academic, but even if you didn't, have a look at it and see what might come out of it. You may be surprised as to what you get. Thanks a lot for listening to this video, and if you have any questions, just send us a comment or go to ulm.edu/library and contact us that way. Have a good day.